I could be a stupid person to say, oh, no, we don't want a free plane.
The U.S. and Qatar are working out the final details of a gift, a big gift.
This is just the latest reflection of an egregious, corrupt presidency.
As of this recording, the status of the gift Qatar has been reportedly poised to present to US President Donald Trump. A custom-tricked Boeing 747-8 worth somewhere in the vicinity of $400 million is unclear. Qatar, perhaps taking note of the response to what would be corruption flagrant and remarkable even by President Trump's formidable standards, is hedging somewhat, saying the stories are inaccurate and the matter is under review and no decision has been made. All of which, alert listeners will note, fall some way short of course this isn't happening, are you insane, it would be outrageous. Because, to be clear, and before we move along to what we promise will be a learned and expansive disquisition on the wider subject of Qatari foreign policy, outrageous is exactly what it would be. It is not even just the obvious and basic bung, i.e. here is a monstrously expensive gift and by golly yes we will be expecting you to pick up the phone whenever we call. It is an almost amusingly massive security risk given the number of nooks and or crannies on a Boeing 747 in which bugging devices might be secreted. Recall that in 2002 a Boeing 767 ordered by China's then President Jiang Zemin, fitted by various companies in Texas, was discovered to be rigged with at least 27 spying devices. The soft power optics are just awful. Steward of the world's biggest economy, commander-in-chief of the mightiest military ever wielded, travelling the planet in an airborne gin palace furnished by a Middle Eastern dictatorship with the population of Chicago and the GDP of Kentucky. Even if it is the case that replacing the aging pair of Boeing 747-200s, which currently mostly serve as Air Force One, is taking a vexingly long time, the USAF does have other planes, and besides which, modifying a new one to meet the rarefied standards of Air Force One, which is not merely a means of transport but an airborne command centre from which World War III can be directed if necessary, is likely to take longer than Trump theoretically has left in office. And not that Trump or anyone around him cares, but the whole proposal is just hilariously illegal under US law, specifically Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8 of the Constitution of the United States, the so-called Emoluments Clause. Quote, "No person holding any office of profit or trust under the United States shall, without the consent of Congress, accept of any present emolument, office or title of any kind whatever from any king, prince or foreign state." By way of perspective, and an example plucked more or less at random from among thousands, in 2013, Chief Justice Umar Sako, first President of the Supreme Court of the Republic of Senegal, presented US President Barack Obama with a handcrafted drum decorated in the green, gold and red of Senegal's flag, which Obama dutifully turned over to the National Archives lest there be any suggestion or suspicion of impropriety. It was worth about $900. For all that, the interesting question is not why would Donald Trump even consider accepting such a gift. It's a great big gold bauble, of course he wants it, but why Qatar would offer it.
I think that was a very nice gesture.
We will not at this time be considering the possibility that Qatar is doing this just because they're a generous and hospitable people. When trying to understand why countries do stuff, it's always useful to consider what that given country wants, which is usually to survive and to prosper, because who wouldn't? Where survival is concerned, Qatar has more reason to be preoccupied than most. It is a small country in a volatile region. It is not so long since Qatar fell out so spectacularly with its vast neighbour Saudi Arabia that the Saudis threatened to turn their shared border into a canal and fill it with nuclear waste.
International companies have been invited to compete for the project. If the project is carried out, it would geographically extend Qatar's isolation from Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Egypt.
And that was after the Saudis had arrayed many other Arab countries into a diplomatic and economic blockade of Qatar. Long story short, everyone was annoyed with Qatar's support for various opposition and or rebel groups across the Arab world, including, ingloriously, Hamas, whose political leader Ismail Haniyeh was long a resident of Doha, Qatar's hosting of a Turkish military base, and Qatar's insistence on funding media, including Al Jazeera, that committed actual journalism in Arab countries. It is common for small countries to pursue a commensurately modest foreign policy, basically hoping that they're safe as long as nobody notices them. You do not see Slovenia, for example, swaggering about the world stage demanding a starring role. But since the accession to the Qatari throne of Emir Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani in 1995, he's still with us, but handed over to one of his sons, Emir Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, in 2013, Qatar has instead followed what might be thought of as a roaring mouse strategy. This is a learned allusion to Leonard Wibberley's 1955 novel The Mouse That Roared, later a droll film starring Peter Sellers about a tiny European duchy which accidentally becomes a superpower.
There isn't a more profitable undertaking for any country than to declare war on the United States and to be defeated.
This is why Qatar has done things like founding Al Jazeera, launching a globe-straddling airline, hosting foreign universities and foreign militaries, US Central Command is located in Qatar, and staging a World Cup. And you'll never guess which prominent American family is currently involved in a $5.5 billion venture to build a golf course near Doha. Arguably more usefully, Qatar has also positioned itself as a diplomatic mediator and deal-maker. Qatar has hosted and or enabled talks between the US and the Taliban and between parties to various conflicts in the Middle East and Africa. Possessing Earth's largest gas field obviously helps in funding such endeavours, but those colossal resources are also a reason that Qatar is forever vulnerable, either to the predations of neighbours or to a Middle Eastern conflict which chokes the Persian Gulf and Qatar's shipping routes with it.
All of those countries, we keep them safe. If it wasn't for us, they probably wouldn't exist right now.
A powerful friend, Earth's most powerful friend, would be handy, especially if their fancy new plane's onboard microphones can pick up anything useful.
You know their slogan, yes, yes, speak louder into the tray table.
For Monocle Radio, I'm Andrew Muller.